In this video, I'm going to show you how to shoot better B-roll with a DJI OM4 gimbal and a smartphone. Are you ready?
If you have a smartphone and gimbal, you can shoot professional level B-roll. Just add a monopod or a sturdy selfie stick and you can shoot some epic crane shots too. In fact, this is all we used when we were commissioned to shoot a music video last year in Switzerland. And they loved it so much, they want us to make another one this year. And back then I didn't have a monopod, so I made do with this pole and a clamp. But I decided to splash $30 on a proper one this time. Before we shoot some B-roll, we should probably understand what it is. Feel free to skip, I've timestamped everything below. The term B-roll comes from film and TV production. There used to be A-roll and B-roll, where your A-roll was the main footage and the B-roll was stuff you could cut to. The filmmakers don't really talk about A-roll anymore, but the idea of B-roll has stayed with us, and it's generally come to mean footage shot without consideration to sound, establishing shots, moving shots, slow motion, time-lapse, hyperlapse, a series of product shots, and so on. If your A-roll is talking to camera, adding B-roll keeps your viewers more engaged. It also helps to illustrate your subject matter. It can simply be there to entertain or inspire. You're only limited by your imagination when shooting B-roll, but the trick is shooting shots which will edit together well. These days, people are making whole videos made up of what they call B-roll. But as there's no A-roll, I guess it should be called roll or something. It's not your equipment, it's what you do with it. Story is the most important thing. Well, we hear that all the time, don't we?
Yeah, how do you do this? It's like, I'm really trying to motivate myself to go out and shoot some B-roll today. But it's so cold and wet and windy.
If you feel a bit lost when it comes to this side of making videos, I have a simple trick to help you out. All you have to do is think up a theme. Just one sentence that sums up what you want to say in your video. Because if you don't have anything to say, then really, what is your video for? So let's say your theme might be the buzz of the city. Now, all your shots need to try to communicate that idea. That might mean quick shots, focusing on the fast pace of urban life, edited to upbeat music, I would guess. You know, music with some kind of pace to it. And once you have a theme, try making a rough shot list. It just gets your mind thinking about the shots you want before you start filming. You don't have to stick to the list 100%, but it gives you a starting point. Having a story theme helps you focus the content of your shots, and this will make a huge difference to how your audience perceives your final video. So it's really worth taking the time to decide your theme and then sticking to it. If you have the capability and the editing power, shoot 4K, but it's not essential. If you want silky smooth footage, then I'd say it's more important to shoot at 60 frames per second than 4K. 1080p at 60 frames per second, slow to 24 frames per second. It's going to look great, but don't shoot everything at 60 frames per second. Vary your frame rates so the slow motion shots have more impact. A variety of shots also helps to keep your audience engaged. That said, some people do shoot everything at 60 frames per second, but then they change it later when they come to edit. So you can stick your 60 frames per second footage onto a 24 frames per second timeline, and the editing software will delete the frames it doesn't want. Don't forget, depending on the shot, most of the time we lock exposure and focus. An establishing shot is normally used to set up the rest of the video. It says, here we are in ... wherever you are, on a sunny beach, at a remote medieval castle, or a skate park, and so on. Now this is the perfect time to use that monopod. Just screw the gimbal to the top with your smartphone. Set your smartphone to shoot 60 frames per second so you can slow it down in the edit. Set your DJI OM4 or 3 to tilt lock mode. And this means that as you lower or raise the camera, the gimbal keeps the camera pointing forwards. If your smartphone has an ultra-wide lens, then switch to that for the establishing shot. Smartphone lenses are pretty wide anyway, so you can still shoot a great establishing shot with the main lens. Hit record and lift the gimbal into the air. Now you can slowly lower or raise the camera. Raising the camera will be more like a reveal shot. With the DJI Osmo Mobile 3 or OM4, you need to go up and down sideways because of the way the gimbal is designed. Another thing, if you want to be more mysterious, you can think about starting your edit with some nice close-ups before finally revealing where you are. And that can be a really effective way to build anticipation, especially if you use music which starts low-key and then builds to a climax. So we have our establishing shot that we can use to set the scene. Obviously there's many types of shots we can use to make up the rest of the video. As a general rule, I look to get a good variety of shots. There are two shots which are the most common gimbal shots, the left-right pan and the walk forward. There's nothing wrong with these shots, but I'm gonna kind of assume you've got those covered because that's the first thing people shoot when they first get a gimbal. But if you want to make the step up, you're going to need some different shots to add to the mix. Apart from the walk forward shot, here's a few other moving shots to think about. Moving from behind an object to reveal the subject of the frame. But the level 2 reveal shot is a bit more complicated. Boost this shot to the next level by moving from a close-up of something relevant to your theme to reveal something else relevant to your theme. And this shot goes to the next level as the level 3 reveal shot, because this shot will be even more awesome if the first image somehow makes a comment on the second. Can you play one image off against the next? You can? What are you, the next Scorsese? So, what else? Tracking or following a subject makes those walking shots more relevant to the audience. It helps to put the audience in the space in the frame. When we see someone experiencing the walk, we put ourselves in their shoes and experience it with them. Basically, it makes the whole experience more relatable. What do you do though if you're filming alone? I just start stalking complete strangers and hope they don't notice. But seriously, if you brought a human with you, this is their moment. Of course, you can put yourself in the shot, either by using the selfie cam or by setting up your gimbal using the tripod. If it's safe to set up your gimbal this way, you can even use the Mimo tracking feature to get the camera to follow your movement. Most new gimbal owners grab a lot of wide-angle shots which take in a broad view, but this doesn't really give the audience anything specific to look at. And if you're not focused, your audience won't be either. When you use the foreground, you can get close up to something interesting that fits your theme. A slow move in at 60 frames per second for slow motion can look really cool. Another use of foreground is to create depth in the frame. That broad wide-angle sweep, well, it's like a picture postcard. It doesn't really have any depth. Foreground creates depth, but don't forget about the background. Think about how the foreground and the background work together. Are you going to contrast a grungy foreground with a nice, clean, sparkling background? What do you think? It's all up to you. It's your creativity that's really going to make the difference. Find an object and circle it, because moving around an object makes it more three-dimensional. Moving your gimbal around is one thing. That's why you bought it, right? But what really makes your shots stand out is combining camera movement with movement in the frame. If you're filming a scene where there is some movement going on, use it. Follow it, move with it, or move in the opposite direction to create a different dynamic in the shot. If there's no movement, try creating some yourself. If you're filming solo, you can even try filming your feet as you're walking. This gives you something to cut into those walk forward shots. Emotion is the key to engaging your audience. You can have a video full of cinematic slow-mo shots, but your audience will be left cold if there's no emotion. How can we add more emotion to our B-roll? It can be simple as showing your subject reacting to things. Or if you're filming alone, then show yourself and try to show how you feel about your location. And whether you love it or hate it, make sure to show it. If you are filming yourself, you might have the gimbal in a fixed position, basically just using it as a small tripod. but you can still add movement to the shot in your editing software. Just use keyframes to add a slow zoom in to the shot, and this gives the impression the camera is moving towards the subject. If you shoot 4K and then master in 1080p, you have the spare pixels to do this without losing video quality. While I was out shooting, I found I kept the monopod attached to the gimbal almost the whole time. It's really useful to have this extendable arm at the ready to grab some interesting shots. I was just walking through this pathway going towards the famous Tower Bridge, and I saw this metal sign hanging down. So I thought that might be cool to do a walk forward shot past that sign, like if you had a drone. And there were a few other instances where having that extra reach meant I could get a shot I wouldn't normally be able to get. This reveal shot, moving up to the round opening, I just held the monopod and then pushed upwards. Oh, and another thing, because having the weight helps to smooth your shots even more. So just loosen your grip and let the monopod just kind of hang like this. You know, the funny thing is, weight actually helps you get a steadier shot. And that's why smartphone shot footage sometimes gets very shaky, like every little hand vibration gets picked up. The phone is so light, and this gimbal is so light, but add a monopod or a selfie stick and it will help to weigh it down in your hand. Oh, there's another tip as well, because if you grip your gimbal too tight, your hand might start shaking because you're contracting your muscles. So that's something else to think about. Try not to grip your gimbal too tight. To get a smooth shot, you need to kind of be relaxed in your body. That's it for this video. I hope you found it useful and entertaining, and I'll see you in the next video.